In November 2025, the United States government issued, arguably, the most important foreign policy document since the 1947 National Security Act. Since World War II, America has engaged in conflicts all over the world, through the Cold War and into the War on Terror after 9/11. Trump's rise in 2016 and his re-election in 2024 have been characterized by a historic attempt to go in another direction, away from what he called endless wars and toward America first. This belief is not new. Former President and Secretary of State John Quincy Adams gave a speech in 1821 where he advised that America shouldn't go abroad in search of monsters to destroy. Almost 200 years after Adams' speech, Trump issued the National Security Strategy, a 29-page document that formalizes Trump's efforts to secure the United States' stability in the new era, under the banner of America First. The document starts off with a challenge: to ensure that America remains the world's strongest, richest, most powerful, and most successful country for decades to come, our country needs a coherent, focused strategy for how we interact with the world. Throughout the document, the Trump administration highlights 6 core interests. In this 10-minute brief, you will learn about border control, the $40 trillion economy, technological supremacy over adversaries, supply chain security overseas, peace in America's sphere of influence, the United States as a sovereign republic. These 6 core interests the strategy seeks are based on 10 core principles. Focused definition of the national interest, meaning that America should stop trying to act everywhere and concentrate only on what truly matters. Peace through strength, the idea that adversaries will not engage in conflict with a strong America. Predisposition to non-interventionism, signaling that America will dissuade itself from intervening in other countries as much as possible. Flexible realism, recognizing that America will happily deal and coexist with regimes that are either undemocratic or follow customs different from the American way of life. Primacy of nations, affirming that the nation-state will be considered the world's fundamental political unit. Sovereignty and respect, establishing that the U.S. will prevent its erosion by international organizations or foreign powers. Balance of power, ensuring that America will maintain global balance of power while preventing the emergence of dominant adversaries. Pro-American worker, indicating that America will diversify and expand the economy to ensure prosperity for the worker. Fairness, holding that America will seek reciprocity from its allies, that is, tariffs, trade balance, and national defense spending. Competence and merit, reflecting that the best America the Trump administration seeks can only be achieved with the help of the best, most capable Americans. According to the NSS, this strategy is motivated above all by what works for America, or, in 2 words, America first. The strategy elevates one issue above all others: border control. In the national security strategy, borders are seen as a determining factor to check if there is sovereignty or not. And quote, "Sovereign nations must control their borders and admission criteria to define their future. Mass migration strains resources, increases crime, weakens cohesion, and threatens security." Think of a nation like a house. If you can't control who walks through your door, do you actually own the house? The NSS says no. Critics from the Center for Strategic and International Studies counter that this overstates migration as a threat compared to China. Yet, another major focus of Trump's NSS is taking a leap forward in the economy. The NSS reconnects economic power to national security and gives 5 objectives that'll guarantee said security: balanced trade, reindustrialization, energy dominance, supply chain security, tech supremacy. The document is also brutally honest about China. President Trump single-handedly reversed 3 decades of mistaken assumptions. In early 2025, the Heritage Foundation framed Trump's economic approach to China as a new Cold War. But unlike the USSR, China's threat is economic and logistical. The new Silk Road and China-funded Russia's Arctic Silk Road are Beijing's way of surrounding and suffocating the US supply chains. America is seeking alternatives to this reality. For example, in 2023, US foreign investment in Africa briefly surpassed China's. Why? Africa possesses critical minerals for batteries and chips, and the NSS treats African partnerships publicly as part of that supply chain security. In President Trump's vision, Europe faces three fundamental problems: what he calls civilizational erasure, a problem of self-confidence, and, last but not least, a security problem that directly affects America. According to the NSS, mass migration is transforming a continent that, if it continues down this path, will be unrecognizable in 20 years or less. This, along with several other problems the document quotes, such as censorship of free speech and suppression of political opposition, cratering birth rates, and loss of national identities, as well as suffocating policies, are affecting quote-unquote European self-confidence. The national security strategy also introduces the Hague Commitment that pledges NATO countries to spend 5% of GDP on defense. Not 2%, 5%. That's quite a leap. For context, the US spends about 3.5%. Most European allies spend 1.5 to 2%. The document echoes Trump's criticism that Europe, because of its proximity to Russia, should invest more in its own defense. Meanwhile, European allies seem a bit worried about this decision. Take, for instance, the words of NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
So when President Trump is doing good stuff, I will praise him, and I don't mind him publishing text messages. And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other. And why do we need each other? I tell you. First of all, because also the US needs NATO. And the US is not only in NATO to prevent a mistake after the First World War, not to re-engage with Europe. And then again, the long arm of history reaching out to the US again in the Second World War, as Churchill famously said in his speech in 1941 in the US Congress. They are also in NATO because for the US to stay safe, and by the way, Arctic region is evidence here, they need a secure Arctic, they need a secure Euro-Atlantic, and they also need a secure Europe. So the US has every interest in NATO as much as Canada and the European NATO allies. But for Europe, if you really want to go it alone, and those of you who are pleading for that, forget that you can ever get there with 5%. It will be 10%. You have to build up your own nuclear capability. That costs billions and billions of euros. You will lose then, in that scenario, you would lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. Good luck.
Finland's Prime Minister Alexander Stubb sounded more optimistic when asked about Europe's ability to defend itself.
First is a direct answer to the question of this panel, can Europe defend itself? My answer is unequivocally yes. If we look at the defense composure of Europe by and large, in a country like Finland, so how do we do it? We have conscription, 1 million have done it. We can mobilize 280,000 soldiers within weeks. We have 62 F-18s. Your next question is going to be, do they fly without Americans? No, they don't. But do we trust that they will continue to fly because it's in the interest of America to do so? Yes.
Brookings Institution analysts warn this could fracture NATO, treating alliances as transactional burdens. Fundamentally, the strategy seeks for Europe to be able to stand on its own. Quote, "We will need a strong Europe to help us successfully compete, and to work in concert with us to prevent any adversary from dominating Europe." The strategy also brands President Trump as the president of peace and points to 8 conflicts resolved in 2025 to prove it, including a Gaza ceasefire and a DRC-Rwanda deal. The whole philosophy behind the strategy is that overwhelming strength prevents war. It's about dissuasion capacity, rather than simply invading and finding out afterwards. The doctrine reintroduces a high bar for intervention, following the predisposition to non-intervention principle. No more nation building. No more democracy crusades. The document literally says, the US will drop the misguided experiment with hectoring nations into abandoning their traditions. Trump's strategy states that the United States will work with undemocratic regimes if it serves American interests. Flexible realism means dealing with governments as they are. Another difference that makes sense of the national security strategy in practical terms is how Trump is refocusing American action on spheres of influence, where a dominant power exerts its military, industrial, and political influence over a bigger region. Why would the US carry out a military operation in Venezuela? According to the document, because Venezuela lies within America's sphere of influence. Why hasn't it done the same in Ukraine? Because Ukraine does not. The Trump administration shows a new approach to geopolitics, in which regional powers handle regional problems, following the balance of power principle. The NSS is a document that shows a new way of how America sees the world. Moving away from imperial overreach, Trump shifts America's strategic focus back to the Western Hemisphere, restoring it as the primary arena of U.S. strategy. Another important thing is the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine: no Chinese control of ports, infrastructure, or resources in America's sphere of influence. Case in point, Operation Absolute Resolve in January 2026, which captured rogue leader Nicolas Maduro from power in Venezuela. If you would like to learn more about the operation, check our 10-minute brief about Maduro's capture and whether it was legal or not. In Asia, China is the focus, but as an economic rival. Securing Taiwan's autonomy as a nation-state relies on two key components: access to Taiwan's semiconductors and the surrounding of China with naval bases in the West Pacific to secure logistic-free transit. Another interest of the national security strategy is to push Japan and South Korea to defend themselves. Allies' autonomy is, in Trump's eyes, America first. Now, the document shows the Middle East became deprioritized. Energy independence means the US doesn't need their oil. Yet, Trump will still seek to expand the Abraham Accords and partner with Gulf states against Iran. But under no circumstance, there will be another trillion-dollar war. Brookings Institution warns this creates vacuums that might pose new dangers in the New World blueprint. According to the think tank, Russia might influence Europe once more, and China might business their way in the Middle East. Trump's national security strategy for 2025 reintroduces a question: can America be strong without being everywhere? The 2025 national security strategy states that a $40 trillion economy, secured borders, and overwhelming military power will let America choose its own battles, instead of fighting everyone else's. It stands on the belief that allies respect strength, not charity. President Trump states that he seeks to avoid, quote-unquote, a world on fire, where wars come to our shores. To avoid wars, President Adams's warning against universal monster killing seems timeless. Whether this strategy will bring along the desired results, namely, never seen greatness through military might and economic leverage, only time will tell. Nonetheless, we would like to ask you, can America be strong without being everywhere? Drop a comment and let us know your take. And if you want to understand the world as it actually is, not as pundits wish it was, subscribe to our channel. Every week, we're posting the 10-minute brief, a recurrent analysis of the current matters of the world. After the 10-minute brief, you will be able to understand and discuss problems that, although they may seem far away, they might knock at your door sooner than later. Comment below. And before you go, we have something for you. We're offering a free ebook called God Complex, where we expose America's censorship machine that threatens free speech. If this video made you think about how power actually works, who moves first, who controls strategic ground, and who sets the rules, our investigation is another story worth understanding. You can download the ebook for free, scanning the QR code or using the link in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to Big Picture Originals, because the stories that shape geopolitics don't show up on your newsfeed until it's too late. We're tracking what happens next.